A human took in an alien orphan girl. Unaware of her noble origins, Ethan Hale had spent most of his life drifting at the edges of civilized space. His station, a small metal platform tethered to a quiet asteroid, was hardly more than a shelter for himself and his salvage operations. He worked alone, picking through old shipwrecks, salvaging anything that might hold value, or anything that could help him trade for food and tools. The galaxy had long since forgotten people like him, humans who lived quietly, who did not belong to any great fleet or empire, who survived on their wits and stubbornness. On a cold, black morning, Ethan was scanning the debris field left behind by a skirmish that had happened years ago. His sensors picked up metal, scrap, and the usual floating wrecks of old fighters and cargo ships. He expected the usual emptiness, but then something small blinked on his screen, a signal. Weak, irregular, almost like a dying heartbeat. He leaned closer to the console. "Now, what's this?" he muttered. He adjusted the sensors. The source wasn't part of the wrecks he had cataloged. It was alive. Somehow, something small and moving had survived among the metal husks and twisted beams. Ethan frowned, curiosity pricking through the fatigue that had been his constant companion. He suited up, checked his tools, and climbed into his small shuttle. The space around him was quiet except for the hum of his engines. He approached the source carefully. There among the debris he found it, a tiny escape pod, scorched and battered, floating as if it had been waiting for someone to find it. Its hull was cracked, smoke rising from small fractures. Ethan's heart skipped. "Someone's alive in there," he said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. His hands worked quickly as he opened the pod's hatch, expecting to find a dying human or maybe nothing at all, but what he saw made him freeze. Inside, curled into a small ball, was a girl, clearly not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dim lights of the pod, a soft blue-green color with faint patterns that Ethan could not name. Her eyes were wide and terrified, reflecting his light like small mirrors. She was small, maybe 8 or 9 by human standards, but fragile and clearly exhausted. She had burns, bruises, and dirt covering her, and her breathing was shallow. Ethan felt a tug in his chest. He had seen death many times, but not like this. Not in the face of a child who did not belong to his world. He moved carefully, speaking in soft tones. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl did not respond. She flinched when he reached in to lift her, pressing herself into the corner of the pod. Ethan took a moment to adjust his approach. He knew she needed warmth, safety, and someone she could trust. Gently, he wrapped her in a thermal blanket from his shuttle, holding her close to steady her trembling body. Back at his station, he set her down on a cot and began tending to her injuries. His hands were steady, trained by years of repairing broken machines, though this was very different. He cleaned her burns carefully, applied salves, and made sure her breathing was even. She stayed silent, only opening her eyes occasionally, watching him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He tried talking to her, giving her a name in hopes of coaxing some words from her lips. "How about Lyra?" he asked gently. "Lyra, do you like that name?" The girl did not respond at first. She only looked at him, the light in her eyes flickering as if testing him. Ethan smiled softly. He did not press further. Words were not the first step here. Trust had to come first. Over the next few days, Ethan did everything he could to help her recover. He prepared small meals, introduced her slowly to the station's modest comforts, and kept his routines calm. Lyra began to eat, though carefully, watching him as if to make sure he would not disappear. Slowly, she started to move more freely, exploring the small station with wide-eyed wonder. Ethan found himself talking to her more often, explaining things about his world. He told her about the stars, the small asteroid his station clung to, the ships that passed occasionally, and even the old stories humans told each other when they were lonely. Lyra did not speak much, but sometimes she would mimic words he said, her voice quiet and uncertain. One evening, as the station's lights dimmed and the vast blackness of space pressed against the windows, Ethan noticed something strange. A small device inside her pod, he had almost missed it, began to emit a faint pulse of light. He frowned, recognizing the pattern as more advanced than anything he owned. It was not a human device. Somehow this girl carried a signal, quiet and hidden. He looked at Lyra, who was watching him with wide, unblinking eyes. There was something about her that felt different. Not just in her appearance, but in the way she held herself, the way her gaze could seem older than her years. Yet she was still a child, a child in need of care. Ethan shook off the feeling. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out later," he said, more to reassure himself than her. For now, she needed safety. Days turned into weeks and Lyra's strength grew. She learned to move quickly around the station, to feed herself, and even to help Ethan with minor repairs. She had a sharp mind and an uncanny ability to notice small details. When he left tools in odd places, she would find them without asking. When he worked on engines, she seemed to understand, even without words. Ethan could not explain it. Humans were capable, yes, but she was extraordinary in ways he had never seen. One quiet morning, Ethan awoke to a small sound, a word whispered almost like a breath. "Ethan!" He sat up sharply. Lyra was standing at the edge of the cot, looking at him. Her voice was small, shaky, but unmistakable. She had said his name. She had chosen to speak. "Hey, that's good," he said softly, trying to keep his excitement calm. "You did that all by yourself?" She nodded once, a serious, almost solemn gesture. Ethan realized then that the bond they were forming was no longer one-sided. She trusted him enough to speak. He smiled, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. He had a companion now, not just a survivor, but someone who might one day be more. Meanwhile, far away across light years of cold space, the galaxy's powers stirred. High in a citadel orbiting a lush alien world, rulers and ministers were in panic. Their daughter, missing for years after a violent coup, was supposed to be dead. All search fleets had failed, until a faint signal began to pulse across encrypted channels, masked as a random distress beacon. Their records indicated it could only be her, the one they had lost. Yet the signal was fragmented, corrupted, and too weak to pinpoint. Still, hope stirred in their hearts. Back at the station, life settled into a fragile rhythm. Ethan would wake, check the systems, feed Lyra, repair salvage, and then spend hours talking to her. He taught her to read, to listen to human stories, to try simple human food. She responded slowly, learning quickly, though often reverting to silence when memories of her past flickered through her mind like shadows. Sometimes she would pause mid-step, eyes distant, and Ethan would know she was remembering something he could never understand. Despite this, she never withdrew completely. She clung to the kindness he offered, slowly learning that trust was not a danger here. And Ethan, for the first time in his solitary life, felt a new kind of purpose. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of people who would harm children for power. But in this quiet corner amidst wreckage and stars, he had found something worth protecting, a life fragile and precious that depended on him. Then one night alarms went off on his station. Not the usual sensors, something unusual, a small object approaching quietly, almost like it knew the station well. Ethan's heart raced. He grabbed his tools and moved to the observation window. Out there among the stars, a small patrol ship glided silently. Its design was elegant, unfamiliar, almost regal. Its insignia glinted in the dim light, a symbol Ethan did not recognize. He turned to Lyra, who was standing behind him. She did not flinch. Her eyes were sharp now, alert. Something in her posture had changed. She knew more than she let on. "They've found us," she whispered, a strange certainty in her voice. Ethan frowned. "Who?" She hesitated, then said softly, "I don't know yet, but they want me." Ethan felt the weight of those words settle like a stone in his chest. He had protected her from hunger, from the cold void of space, from solitude. But this was something new. Someone, somewhere, wanted to take her away, for reasons he could not yet guess. He moved quickly, preparing the station for a possible confrontation, though he had no weapons beyond his own tools and cunning. Lyra followed him without hesitation, showing no fear. Ethan realized, with a quiet shock, that she was not just any child. She carried something, knowledge, instinct, maybe even destiny, that set her apart. The patrol ship docked without warning, airlocks hissing. A group of beings stepped out, tall, armored, and clearly not human. They stopped at the center of the station, looking around, their eyes finally resting on Lyra. For a moment the room was silent. Then one of them spoke, a tone formal and commanding. "Child," the alien said, "you are required to return." Lyra looked at Ethan, her small hand brushing against his arm. He met her gaze, feeling the unspoken question, "Should I let them take her?" Ethan shook his head gently. "Not without her choice," he said firmly, his voice carrying a strength he did not know he possessed. "She stays with me if she wants to leave, that's different, but not like this." The alien hesitated. They seemed taken aback by his words. In that pause, Ethan realized something important. Humans were unpredictable. They could defy expectation, confront the powerful, and make choices based on morality rather than fear or protocol. And that unpredictability, that courage, would be his greatest advantage in the days to come. For now, the galaxy's attention had turned toward this small station at the edge of the stars, where a human had taken in an alien child, unaware of the storm her existence might bring. And in the quiet that followed, Lyra spoke again, her voice stronger this time. "Thank you," she said. Ethan smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility settle comfortably on his shoulders. Whatever the galaxy sent next, he knew one thing: he would not let her face it alone. The stars outside the station twinkled like distant promises, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt hope. Not the faint hope of survival, but the bright, unshakable hope that came from protecting someone who mattered. And in that hope, a new story began, one that neither human nor alien would ever forget. Days passed since the patrol ship had docked at Ethan's station. The aliens had left, apparently convinced to wait, but their presence lingered in every corner of the small platform. Ethan moved around with quiet urgency, repairing minor systems and reinforcing the station's outer hull. He worked in silence, glancing frequently at Lyra, who was sitting quietly in a corner, her small hands folded in her lap. She had grown more cautious since the encounter, her eyes sharper, constantly observing. Lyra did not speak much. Her words were sparse, chosen carefully, like she weighed each one against some invisible rule. Yet she followed Ethan closely, shadowing him as he moved from one task to another. Sometimes she would offer advice or suggestions, and Ethan noticed that many of her ideas were clever, practical, and sometimes even better than his own. He was surprised at how quickly she understood the station systems and even learned to handle some tools. One evening, while Ethan repaired a broken panel in the main corridor, he heard a soft voice behind him. "Ethan, why do you help me?" He paused, glancing over his shoulder. Lyra stood there, small and vulnerable in the dim light. Her eyes were fixed on him, searching for an answer. Ethan put down his tools and knelt to meet her gaze. "I help you because you need help," he said simply. "Because no one else is here and because it's the right thing to do. You're a child and you deserve safety." Lyra's eyes lingered on him, and for a moment a flicker of something older passed over her features. A memory, perhaps, of a life she had lost. She nodded once and returned to her seat, her small frame tense but less frightened than before. As the days went on, strange things began to happen. Ethan noticed that when Lyra spoke, other aliens on the station, traders, scavengers, and occasional travelers, would pause, sometimes bow slightly or avert their eyes. At first, he thought it was coincidence, but the pattern became impossible to ignore. Lyra's presence commanded respect, even when she did not speak. One day, while Ethan was sorting through a shipment of old parts, a small patrol vessel from a nearby star system arrived unexpectedly. Its hull bore markings he did not recognize. The crew requested supplies and repairs, and Ethan welcomed them, offering the usual hospitality. As the aliens moved through the station, their attention kept returning to Lyra. They spoke to her in hushed tones, using a language Ethan did not understand. She answered carefully, her tone polite but firm. He realized then that she understood far more than she had let on. Later that night, Ethan asked her about it. "Lyra, why do they act strange around you? Do you know them?" She hesitated, her small fingers twisting together. I think so," she whispered. "I remember places, people, but not everything. It is confusing." Ethan nodded. He did not press further. There was no need to force memories that might frighten her. For now, she was safe, and that was what mattered. Weeks passed, and the bond between them grew stronger. Ethan taught Lyra to read and write, showing her human books filled with stories of courage, loyalty, and adventure. She listened intently, absorbing every word. Her mind was sharp, and she often asked questions that revealed her understanding of complex ideas far beyond her age. One day, while reading a story about a human explorer who had discovered a lost colony, Lyra asked a question that made Ethan pause. "Ethan, what if someone wanted to take me away? Would you stop them?" Ethan looked at her, feeling the weight of her question. "Yes," he said firmly. "I would stop them. You are safe here, and I will do whatever it takes to keep it that way." Her eyes softened, and for the first time in weeks she smiled. It was small, hesitant, but genuine. Ethan felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of purpose he had never known before. He had survived alone for so long, but now he had someone depending on him, someone he could not abandon. The following week, a courier ship arrived with news from the outer sectors. Among the standard trade messages, there was a warning. A noble house from a distant system had reported a missing child, the daughter of a powerful leader who had been overthrown during a coup. The description matched Lyra almost exactly. Ethan read the report carefully, his mind racing. Could it be true? Could this small, quiet child he had rescued be a princess, or some noble of immense importance? He looked at Lyra, who was quietly examining a small mechanical device she had found. She did not notice the document in his hands. He debated whether to tell her. She had suffered loss, and the thought of her past might frighten her, but he knew that the truth could not be hidden forever. That night he approached her gently. "Lyra, I read something today," he began. "It's about a child far away. They say she is missing, and the description, it sounds a lot like you." Lyra froze, her small hands gripping the device tightly. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear mixed with recognition. She looked at him, searching his face for answers. I don't know," she whispered. "I remember some things, but they are not clear. Places, people, voices. I am scared." Ethan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her small shoulder. "It's okay to be scared," he said softly. "I don't know what this means for you, but I do know one thing: you are safe here, and whatever you decide, I will stand by you." Lyra nodded, her small body trembling slightly. For the rest of the night, they sat together, neither speaking much, both thinking about the uncertain future. In the days that followed, strange events began to occur. Small patrols from distant systems appeared near the station, scanning the area, asking questions, sometimes retreating without explanation. Ethan grew increasingly wary. He realized that the galaxy was beginning to notice Lyra, and not all who noticed would have good intentions. One afternoon, while Ethan worked on repairing a damaged communications array, Lyra approached him with a question that made him stop mid-motion. "Ethan, why do humans fight?" she asked. "Why do they take things from others instead of helping?" Ethan paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Humans are complicated," he said carefully. "Some fight for greed or power, yes, but many fight to protect what they care about. That's what makes them strong. That's why I fight, to keep you safe." Lyra considered this, her small face thoughtful. "I understand. I think I like that." Her words were simple, but the meaning behind them struck Ethan deeply. She was learning not just language, but values, trust, and courage, the qualities that defined humans at their best. He felt a quiet pride mixed with concern. She was growing fast, both in mind and in presence, and the galaxy would notice soon enough. One evening, as the station drifted silently among the stars, Lyra came to Ethan with something in her hand. It was a small device, glowing faintly with a pulse he had seen before, the same kind of signal hidden in her pod when he had first found her. "Ethan, this is from my pod," she said softly. "I think it wants me to return." Ethan took the device, examining it carefully. The pulse was faint but deliberate, like a beacon trying to call its owner. He realized then that Lyra's past was catching up to her, and that the safety they had built here was fragile. He looked at her, determination hardening in his features. "We won't let anyone take you without your choice," he said firmly. "Whatever they want, you decide, and I'll protect that decision." Lyra nodded, her eyes steady. For the first time, she seemed certain of something beyond fear. She trusted him. And in that trust, Ethan felt a surge of resolve. Days later, while he repaired a minor breach in the station's hull, the alert system blared suddenly. Ethan raced to the observation window and saw a small fleet approaching. They were sleek ships, faster and more advanced than anything he had seen outside major star systems. His heart sank. The galaxy had found her. Lyra stood beside him, small but unwavering. She did not flinch at the sight of the ships, though her hands were clenched tightly. Ethan realized something profound. She was no ordinary child. There was strength in her that went beyond size or age. She had survived things he could not imagine, and she had learned trust despite fear. The fleet moved closer, and a single ship detached, sending a message in a language Ethan could not understand. He looked at Lyra, who tilted her head slightly, reading the symbols as if they were familiar. She whispered softly, "They want me." Ethan's jaw tightened. He could not let them take her, not without understanding their intentions, not without knowing if she wanted to go. He looked at her and nodded. "Then we wait together," he said, "and we face them together." The fleet's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter. The quiet life they had built was over. The galaxy was moving, and Lyra's past was catching up. Yet Ethan felt no fear, not for himself, but for her. She was under his protection, and he would not fail her. As night fell on the station, the stars outside seemed to burn brighter, as if bearing witness to the bond between human and alien child. Lyra leaned slightly against him, small but confident, and Ethan knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The galaxy might be vast, full of danger and power, but here in this quiet corner something extraordinary had taken root. A human and an alien, united by trust, courage, and the beginnings of a story that would echo across worlds. And for the first time, Ethan allowed himself to hope, not just for survival, but for the possibility that kindness, bravery, and choice could shape the fate of a child born into a galaxy of conflict. The fleet lingered at the edge of Ethan's small station for hours. Its presence was like a shadow over the quiet life he and Lyra had built. Ethan watched from the observation window as the ships hovered in perfect formation, sleek and silent, waiting for something or someone. His mind raced. He had faced salvage crews, pirates, even dangerous wildlife on distant planets, but this was different. These ships were precise, controlled, and they had purpose. Lyra stood beside him, calm despite the tension. Her eyes followed the ships, her small fingers curling into fists. Ethan noticed the way she carried herself, alert, calculating, aware. Something in her posture made him realize that, even as a child, she was no ordinary being. She had survived horrors that he could only guess at, and she had learned to trust him in spite of them. That trust now weighed heavily on his shoulders. Suddenly, a communication signal appeared on his console. It was not in any language he recognized, but the tone was clear, formal, demanding, insistent. Ethan hesitated, glancing at Lyra. She tilted her head as if understanding something beyond his perception. She stepped forward, reaching for the console, and touched the glowing symbols. A quiet hum ran through the system, and for a brief moment the message became comprehensible. "They want me," she whispered. They say I must return." Ethan clenched his fists. "Not without your choice," he said firmly. "Whatever they want, you decide. No one will take you by force while I'm here." Lyra looked at him, her small eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. I need to know why," she said. "Why they want me. I think I am important to them." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we find out together, but first we prepare." Over the next several days, Ethan worked tirelessly. He repaired the station's defenses, reinforced the outer hull, and readied improvised weapons from salvage parts. Lyra helped where she could, her small hands steady and precise. She learned quickly, surprising Ethan with her understanding of engineering principles and strategy. He realized that she was not just a child. She had an instinct for survival and logic that went far beyond her years. During this time, the fleet made no move to attack. Instead, they circled, scanning the station, watching for any sign of movement. Ethan kept a careful eye on their sensors, knowing that any mistake could put Lyra in danger. But he also noticed something else, an unusual hesitation in their actions, a flicker of respect in the way their ships maintained formation around the station rather than entering aggressively. One evening, as the station floated silently among the stars, Ethan sat with Lyra in the main room. They shared a meal of simple rations, the silence between them filled with unspoken questions. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Ethan, I remember something," she said softly. "A place bright with many people. I think they were afraid of me, I think." Ethan listened carefully, offering her a reassuring smile. "It's okay," he said. "You don't have to remember everything right now. We'll face it together when the time comes." Lyra nodded, but her eyes remained distant. Ethan could see the flicker of old pain, memories she did not yet understand, and he felt a deep protective instinct stir within him. He had chosen to save her, and now he realized that saving her would mean more than just keeping her alive. It would mean helping her confront the past she had barely survived. The following day, the fleet sent a smaller ship to the station's docking bay. Ethan and Lyra watched as it approached, cautious but deliberate. The hatch opened, and a group of aliens stepped out. They were tall, armored, and moved with precision. Their leader, a stern figure with a commanding presence, stepped forward. "You are the guardian of the child," he said, his voice formal and sharp. "We come with a message. The child is of royal blood. She is the last surviving heir of a house that was betrayed and overthrown. It is her duty to return." Ethan stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. She is a child, he said, and right now she is safe here. She will decide for herself if she wants to leave. Until then, you will not touch her. The alien leader's eyes narrowed. You do not understand, he said. Her return is not optional. It is required by law and tradition. The Empire's stability depends on her presence. Ethan shook his head. I understand more than you think, he said, and I also understand that a child's choice is more important than any law or empire. You will wait and you will respect that. For a tense moment, neither side moved. Then Lyra stepped forward, her small figure steady despite the weight of their presence. I am listening, she said, her voice quiet but clear. I need to understand what happened. I need to know why I am important, but I will choose for myself. The aliens exchanged glances, clearly taken aback. The leader's face hardened, but there was a flicker of recognition. This child was not like any other they had dealt with. She had survived, endured, and now stood with a quiet authority that even adults might hesitate to challenge. Over the next several days, Ethan and Lyra met with the alien representatives, listening carefully as they explained the coup, the betrayal, and the danger that still lingered in distant systems. Lyra absorbed the information quickly, asking questions that revealed a deep understanding and a mind capable of strategic thought. Ethan marveled at her resilience. She was a child, yes, but she carried wisdom and courage far beyond her years. As the meetings progressed, it became clear that not all the aliens were united in their intentions. Some seemed genuinely concerned for Lyra's safety, while others were motivated by power, politics, and fear of the consequences if she chose poorly. Ethan realized that the situation was more dangerous than he had anticipated. They were not just negotiating for a child. They were navigating a web of intrigue, betrayal, and potential violence. One night, as Ethan checked the station's defenses, Lyra approached him quietly. Ethan, I think some of them want to hurt me, she said softly. Not all, but some. I can feel it. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we stay vigilant, he said. We prepare for whatever comes. I won't let them harm you. Lyra nodded, her small hand brushing against his arm. In that simple gesture, Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had promised to protect her, and he would not fail. Not now, not ever. The tension reached a breaking point when a group of hostile aliens attempted to force Lyra into a shuttle. Ethan reacted instinctively, using every skill he had learned in years of survival to block them. Tools became weapons, quick thinking became strategy, and Lyra stood beside him, small but unyielding, helping to redirect systems and alarms. Together, they managed to prevent the kidnapping without bloodshed, forcing the attackers to retreat. The victory was small, but it was significant. Ethan realized that the galaxy had underestimated them both, not just his human ingenuity, but Lyra's strength, intelligence, and courage. She was more than a child. She was a force to be reckoned with. That night, as they repaired minor damage from the skirmish, Lyra turned to Ethan. I think I can do this, she said softly. I can face them. I can make my choice. Ethan nodded, pride and concern mixing in his chest. You will, he said. And I will be with you every step of the way. The following days were tense but focused. Ethan continued to fortify the station, and Lyra studied the maps, charts, and communication systems. She learned quickly, absorbing knowledge at a rate that amazed Ethan. He realized that the galaxy would soon see something extraordinary. A human and an alien child, standing together, prepared to face the forces that sought to control destiny. One evening, Lyra asked a question that surprised him. Ethan, do humans ever choose duty over family? She asked. He considered her question carefully. Sometimes, he said, but the strongest humans, those worth remembering, find a way to protect both. That is what I am trying to do now. She looked at him, small eyes wide and thoughtful. I think that is why I trust you, she said, because you choose to protect, not because you are forced. Ethan felt a deep warmth at her words. Trust was rare, fragile, and precious, and she had given it to him freely. He realized that this trust would be their greatest weapon, their strongest shield against a galaxy that might not understand or accept them. Then, as the station floated silently in the void, a new signal appeared on their sensors. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably deliberate. Ethan examined it closely and felt a chill run down his spine. It was a warning, a declaration, and a challenge all in one. They know, he said quietly. Lyra stepped beside him, small but unwavering. Then we face them, she said, together. And in that moment, Ethan understood something profound. The galaxy had underestimated them, but it would soon learn that human courage, intelligence, and heart could stand against even the most calculated power. The quiet station at the edge of the stars was no longer just a refuge. It was a place of defiance, a place where trust and bravery could change the course of events. As night fell and the stars outside glimmered coldly, Ethan and Lyra prepared for what was to come. The galaxy might be vast and dangerous, but here, in this small corner of space, a human and an alien child were ready to face it, together. No force, no fleet, no empire could take away the bond they had forged. And as the distant lights of the approaching ships flickered on the horizon, Ethan felt a quiet certainty. They would not back down. They would not surrender. And the story that had begun with a child in a broken escape pod was about to reshape the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. The stars outside Ethan's station seemed colder than ever, distant lights glinting against the black void. The fleet that had lingered for days was finally moving in, their ships gliding toward the station with precision and silent menace. Ethan tightened his grip on a small control panel, scanning their approach, while Lyra stood beside him, calm and steady. She had grown in confidence, her small frame carrying a presence far larger than her size. She no longer appeared frightened. Instead, she seemed ready, aware that the galaxy had finally come for her. Ethan glanced at her, seeing the determination in her eyes. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. She nodded. "I am, but I need to do it my way." He smiled faintly, pride swelling in his chest. "Then we do it together." The first ship docked with a soft hiss, its airlock sliding open to reveal a delegation of the Empire's most senior officers. Their expressions were formal, masks of authority and discipline, but Ethan could feel the tension behind them. They had come to claim Lyra, expecting fear and submission. Instead, they were met with a child who refused to yield and a human who refused to back down. "You are the last heir of your house," their leader said, stepping forward. "Your return is necessary. The Empire will not survive without your presence." Lyra held her chin high, small fingers brushing against the edge of the console in front of her. "I know who I am," she said, her voice steady. "But I will decide when and how I return. No one will force me. Not now, not ever." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. A child speaking with such authority should have been shocking, but it was the human next to her who truly unsettled them. Ethan stood tall, his posture calm, his voice steady. "She chooses," he said. "You will wait until she decides. That is the law of trust, and it is stronger than any law you claim." One of the officers sneered, stepping forward as if to intimidate them. "You are a human. You will obey. You do not understand the consequences of defying the Empire." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "I understand consequences better than you think," he said. "I understand loyalty, courage, and the right to protect someone who cannot defend themselves. I will not fail her, and if you try to take her by force, you will fail too." The tension in the room was palpable. For a moment, no one moved. Then Lyra took a step forward, her small voice ringing out clear and unwavering. "I am not just a child," she said. "I am the last of my family, yes, but I am also a person. I have a life, I have choices, and I choose to stay here for now. Anyone who tries to force me will face the consequences." The delegation froze, caught between protocol and the undeniable authority of the child before them. Ethan could see the conflict in their eyes. Some clearly feared what would happen if they pressed the issue, others were unsure of the human's courage, and all of them underestimated the strength they were confronting. For the next few hours, negotiations began. Ethan and Lyra listened as the officers explained the situation, the coup, the betrayal, and the fragile state of the Empire. Lyra asked questions, sharp and precise, uncovering details that even the officers had not expected her to understand. She analyzed the risks, considered alliances, and proposed solutions that balanced her safety with the needs of her people. Ethan watched her with awe. She had grown beyond a child in months, her mind capable of navigating politics, strategy, and diplomacy. And yet she had not lost the compassion and trust she had learned from him. He realized that the galaxy was seeing something extraordinary, a human-raised child shaping the destiny of empires simply by standing firm in her principles. As the hours passed, a new danger emerged. Outside the station, a group of rogue ships appeared on the sensors, their intentions clear. They wanted to exploit the situation, perhaps capture Lyra for their own gain. Ethan's heart raced. He had expected political tension, but not an attack. He immediately moved to reinforce the station's defenses, while Lyra analyzed the incoming ship's movements. "Ethan," she said calmly, "they are fast but predictable. We can use the station's energy fields to trap them." He nodded, impressed. "Show me how." Together, they worked, Lyra directing the placement of shields and energy pulses, Ethan implementing mechanical adjustments to maximize the station's defenses. When the rogue ships entered range, they were met with a precise countermeasure that trapped them in a field of energy, immobilizing them without destroying the ships. The delegation of Empire officers stared in disbelief. A child and a human had just outmaneuvered what should have been an overwhelming attack. Lyra looked at Ethan, her small face serious but relieved. "We did it," she said softly. Ethan smiled, feeling pride and relief in equal measure. "Yes," he said, "we did together." The following day, formal discussions resumed. Lyra had earned a new respect, not only from Ethan but from the alien delegation as well. The officers began to speak with her differently, acknowledging her insight and intelligence rather than treating her as a mere child. She absorbed the attention calmly, her words measured, her decisions clear. "I will return to my home," she said finally after careful consideration. "But I will not go alone. I will take someone I trust, someone who has protected me when no one else could." Ethan's heart pounded. He knew what she meant. She wanted him to accompany her. The implications were enormous. He would be stepping into a world of politics, danger, and potential betrayal. But he did not hesitate. "I will go with you," he said simply. "Wherever you lead, I follow." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected obedience or fear, not choice backed by courage. They realized then that the human beside her was not just a protector. He was a symbol of human ingenuity, bravery, and determination, the qualities that had allowed them both to survive against overwhelming odds. Preparations for travel began immediately. Ethan helped Lyra ready a small vessel, modified for long-distance travel and equipped with defensive systems. The station buzzed with activity as the delegation coordinated with distant fleets, ensuring that the journey would be safe from opportunistic threats. Lyra remained focused, reviewing strategies, while Ethan ensured that every system was functional. When the moment finally came to depart, Lyra stood on the platform, her small figure radiating confidence. She turned to Ethan, her eyes meeting his. "Thank you," she said softly. "For everything, for trust, for courage, for staying with me." Ethan smiled, feeling the warmth of her words. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "I promise to protect you, that's all that matters." As the vessel detached from the station and moved into open space, they encountered their first challenge, a fleet of ships sent by rival factions, hoping to intercept the child who had survived against all odds. Ethan and Lyra worked seamlessly, their combined instincts guiding their actions. Ethan piloted with skill and precision, while Lyra directed maneuvers, calculated trajectories, and anticipated enemy movements. They moved like a single unit, their bond evident in every decision. The battle was tense but brief. The enemy ships, expecting a frightened child and an inexperienced human, were unprepared for their coordinated strategy. Shields flared, engines burned, and one by one, the rival ships were forced to retreat or were disabled. Lyra's calm authority and Ethan's ingenuity had turned what should have been a trap into a decisive victory. When the conflict ended, Ethan looked at Lyra, his chest swelling with pride. "You were incredible," he said. She smiled faintly, her small hand brushing against his arm. "So were you," she replied. "We are strong together." Their journey continued, taking them across systems that had never seen such courage from a human and an alien child. Along the way, they encountered diplomats, traders, and citizens who marveled at Lyra's calm authority and Ethan's unwavering bravery. News spread quickly, and the story of the human who had raised a noble child and stood beside her against fleets and factions became legend. Finally, they arrived at Lyra's homeworld. The sight of the lush planet, its cities and palaces gleaming under the light of the twin suns, was breathtaking. Yet even here, danger lingered. The remnants of the coup still plotted, wary of the girl who had survived and returned stronger than ever. Ethan and Lyra approached cautiously, but with determination. Lyra's first act was to confront the leaders responsible for the betrayal of her family. She spoke with authority, her voice calm and measured, revealing their plots and exposing their cowardice. The assembly was stunned by her knowledge, her confidence, and the unwavering presence of the human who had guided her through her darkest days. Ethan watched from beside her as Lyra claimed her place not through fear, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. She did not seek revenge, she sought justice and stability. She forgave where possible and punished where necessary, showing the wisdom she had gained while living among humans. When the final ceremonies were complete, the Empire recognized Lyra as their true heir. She stood on the balcony of the palace, overlooking the people who had once feared her, now cheering for her courage and strength. Ethan stood slightly behind her, proud, exhausted, but happy. He had protected her, taught her, and witnessed the transformation of a frightened child into a leader who could change the fate of a galaxy. Lyra turned to him, her small hand brushing against his. "We did it," she said softly. "Yes," Ethan replied. "We did it together." The galaxy had changed. A child raised by a human had survived betrayal, fleet attacks, and political danger. She had returned stronger, wiser, and with a perspective shaped by trust, courage, and compassion. And beside her, a human who had chosen kindness over fear, had proven that even the smallest actions could ripple across worlds, altering destiny in ways no empire could predict. For Ethan and Lyra, the story was not just about survival. It was about courage, choice, and the bonds that make us stronger than any law, army, or empire. The human had raised a queen, and in doing so had reminded the galaxy that strength is not measured by power alone, but by the courage to protect, the intelligence to adapt, and the heart to care when no one else will. As the twin suns set over Lyra's homeworld, Ethan looked at the horizon. The stars beyond gleamed with quiet promise. He knew the galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and challenges, but he also knew something else. Together, a human and an alien could face anything. The bond they had forged was stronger than fear, stronger than power, and it would guide the galaxy into a future where courage, kindness, and trust could change everything. And so the human and the alien child-turned queen stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next, not as protector and ward, but as equals bound by choice, courage, and the unbreakable strength of trust. The galaxy watched, and for the first time, it understood that humanity could teach even the greatest powers what it truly meant to be brave.